Hello, everyone. Today, we're talking to Michael Ryan Bennett and Josh Shadid of Lord Danger. Technically, of Monstera Group and Modern Logic as well. You're about to find out what that means. But Lord Danger is a creative production studio based in Los Angeles that specializes in bold and innovative commercials, branded content, and music videos. And their work is bold. It's pretty cool, from their commercials for Old Spice, Tostitos, and Mint, to their music videos for Lil Nas X, Doja Cat, and Run the Jewels. A very cool cyberpunk crossover with Run the Jewels on that project, by the way. But Lord Danger is making some really cool work. However, while getting to know the guys during this discussion, as you'll hear, I learned that one of the reasons they have such high-quality creative, especially when it comes to animation work, is because Michael and Josh run several different companies that work in tandem with Lord Danger, such as Modern Logic under the holding company Monstera Group. But Michael and Josh explain their business arrangement way better than me, so listen up, because they share about the ups and downs of building your own ship, in their case, ships, how to team up to generate success, how to scale, being solution-driven, and when to contribute as an employee, running a hybrid studio, and keeping production and creative separate, but equal. So we hope you get something out of this episode with Michael and Josh of Lord Danger, and Modern Logic, and Monstera Group. It'll make sense once they explain it.
A garden of pure ideology.
Yeah, just your typical Super Bowl car ad.
Or a hilarious beer ad.
Break was over 15 minutes ago, Mitch!
I think you're the best ever.
Look out. Back up. Where are you?
You're in the bush.
Well, how am I supposed to do? I've never been there.
I don't always drink beer, but when I do...
Wanna play Bob?
I think we're going to be here a while.
Guys, it's not, it's not like, hey, welcome to the show. It's really just a session, a conversation. I'm so grateful that you guys took the time to do this. I know some other people.
Nice to be asked. So
yeah, of course. I know I want to get to how I found you guys soon to talk about that. But if you could, just so that the listeners know who's who, Michael, if you could introduce yourself first, and then Josh, and tell us a little bit about what you do with Lord Danger before we dive into the questions.
Yeah, my name is Michael Bennett, and I am managing director and founder and executive producer, all those fun titles, at Monstera Group, which includes Modern Logic and Lord Danger.
I'm Josh Shadid. Michael and I are partners, founders, and executive producers. I sit more on the Lord Danger side in terms of my day-to-day, where I am executive producer of our live action division.
Well, if you don't mind, I'd love to hear about that, because I found you through Lord Danger. I think I saw, it was either a Doja Cat video or a commercial.
Yeah.
It was Old Spice, right, with the heads?
Yeah, that was Old Spice. Then there was also Doja
Yes.
Cat, which was the Get Into It video that we did as well.
I think it's Get Into It, yeah.
I knew you were going to say that. Everybody has to add.
Yeah.
And I think only she can say that, right? So.
Since you talked about Monstera, is that relatable? Do you want to share about Monstera?
Well, yeah, I guess I could break it down, and this is going to be a bit of discovery too sometimes when we talk about it. No, the way Monstera is really the holding company that Josh and I formed together to, encompass the studios and maybe the future studios that we're thinking about as it relates to the evolution of how content is created. And Lord Danger really sits atop of the live action roster of directors and, how we approach things practically in camera with, of course, any of the conceptual elements that might have CG or, have some sort of hybrid thereof. And Modern Logic is a design studio that lives under Monstera that truly is a conceptual design studio focusing on animation, motion graphics, and visual effects. It often can include live action with the concept in early design phases of what's best for the brands. That's why they speak so well to each other, because they can cross-platform pretty easily. And, the way that we approach sort of the design challenges and content challenges that are provided is really open-ended. I think we don't really sort of lock that down to one singular approach or the other. It's what best serves a brand, what's more contemporary, and how we can sort of mix media these days together is ideal. I think that's kind of where everybody is going, and it's more fun. It's more fun to play with, and it seems more relevant just with.
And the entity as a whole, the Monstera Group, we look at as like a brand studio. So within that brand studio, we kind of have the different divisions, which ultimately are different companies that specialize, as Michael said, in the various sort of categories of what we need to do to service brand's needs. And that's kind of expanding in all directions all the time as we continue to like laterally add new services and determine like, does that need a new identity, or is that something that fits within the current structure of our individual studios?
So can you tell me a little bit more about why you decided to do the 3?
No.
I love this answer. Yes. No, we did not.
You have vastly more experience than I do, especially together. Was it easier to do business and say, hey, this is just where we do the, as you said, the live action narrative stuff, and it's easier to just make it its own entity?
No, there's a lot more history there. Josh and I have worked together for many, many, many years. Josh has always had Lord Danger and curated the roster of directors that were on there. And I have always been in animation with live action, of being a big part of that. And when I had worked at other studios, Josh and I met in Cannes, I think about 14 years ago, or 15 at this point, a very long time ago. And
I was a baby.
Yes,
I was a baby.
He was a baby. I was still young. I'm still young. God dang it. And Josh and I became fast friends and friends first. But in that time period, when I was working in design or conceptualizing projects that included live action, I was always reaching out to Josh to execute a lot of the live action in the early parts of our, friendship and career. And so Lord Danger was I wouldn't even want to say white label, but sometimes it was, participant in some of the projects we were doing. And Josh and I would always look at each other and be left in the trenches trying to figure out budgets and, sort of the logistics involved with, of course, not only marrying two companies and making sure it was profitable, but, having it not affect the creative. And so while figuring that out, we would always late nights look at each other and be like, why aren't we doing this for ourselves? Why are we doing this for other people? But in a very healthy way, we sort of built a trust in what Josh did, around live action in support of, conceptual design or concepts that, I was working with creative directors on. And it sort of naturally, I think, progressed to us forming this company and wanting to, I think, take what we've learned over the years. I always believed in Josh and Lord Danger's approach to content and was always there to support it where I could. But, we thought, well, why don't we try to do this together in a way that makes sense, where I could really get that conceptual department going and company and studio going with our connected support of each other.
And we were always kind of the underdog swinging above our weight class a little bit. To lack of a better word, we're scrappy and small and efficient and kind of had our hands in everything as in terms of Lord Danger pre this new conglomerate now at this point. What we learned kind of along the way was that while we had our hands in a lot of different aspects of production, we would do animation internally, we would do design internally for our own projects. And of course, we'd help anybody who needed production. We were there to help, especially, and Michael and I worked together often and frequently over, a 10-year period. But what we kind of found as I was learning, and, Michael kind of informed some of this as well, was that specialization was still very important.
Yeah.
While I was always upset by like the lack of efficiency with like how many companies someone had to go to get anything done, or how absurd I found it to be like just a get boards and shoot something and hand it to somebody else cog in the machine of making things. They're like, just the slightest like change in how things are done, you could be completely irrelevant. You know what I mean? That was always kind of how my head works. Like, you got to find what the future is going to be and continue to build into that, like, and be resistant to the shifting tectonic plates of the industry, right? Or the world or media landscape. As Michael and I finally decided to come together and do this, it was very much like a 2 is much better than 1 in this case. And what we can do together is much larger than what I can do by myself. It really inspired us to push through, riots and fires and the pandemic. And I mean, we started this journey on like January 2020. And so it was a wild first year.
Your portfolio was so deep. I didn't notice that it was that recent.
Well, as you look at Lord Danger's been around since 2012, 2013, something like that. So like specific, but what we've done to grow together in the Monstera Group with, launching Modern Logic, launching Monstera Group, building it out into kind of a larger infrastructure. And fortunately, Michael's done this a few times before. So that's extremely helpful to me, who has mostly just been swinging above my weight class for a long time.
Well, and I want to, this is so weird doing this and we're like talking about ourselves the entire time. But the idea behind Josh's vision for what Lord Danger was, I was always tracking heavily with, and me working at different types of studios that had that edgy, artistic, very contemporary look to the work. It blended so well. And I've loved the way that Josh has curated that over the years. And I think that intelligent sort of low-lying...
Irreverent.
Is really nice to have inside of any of the work that we're making to make it sort of a gift to the end user. But at the same time, it was very much in line with, I think, the way that design is always evolving, in animation. So I was excited to join with Josh to build onto what he had already done for years. We've always agreed, I think, very much in the vision of where to take things creatively and where they need to be to stay relevant and present.
Well, especially being remote for the most part of the 2 years we've been building this new entity, bringing on new teams and training people, building structure. Like, we have to have an alignment in vision so that Michael and I can share language and share direction, so we can split off and go do the things we need to do within the same, space, but like making sure we're always pointing at this, like the same point on the horizon, and not like giving direction, to different people different ways.
Yeah. Well, I want to comment on a couple of things you guys said. At least in my experience, we sometimes have a hard time if animators aren't available, because I produce for a company based out of Brooklyn, and if everyone's busy, sometimes it gets really expensive, because then I've got to start calling people we don't know.
Yeah.
So I feel, was it beneficial for you guys to? I guess I'm wondering what came first. Did you just assume it would be a good idea to have each other on call so quickly, or did you start to see a need for animation interweaving with live action video so much that you were like, hey, we got to do this?
Well, I think there's two answers to that question. It's like, from my perspective, yes, we were integrating animation and design into a lot of our live action work, and we would end up doing a lot of it ourselves just because of the sheer cost of sometimes taking, there's a lot of expenses of taking it to other places. So from my perspective, that was something we were doing, but not doing at the level it could be done, or as effectively or as efficiently as it could be done. From Michael has a different tale of that, because he was already in animation and design.
And again, I always bring up this word, I would try to beat it into people is design. And it becomes such a general big word, but design meaning that moment that you're really coming up with that concept for the client or for the brand or the piece of content, and it having no limitations in it whatsoever to really what's going to best serve them. And that could involve live action. That had always been a big part of, I think, what a design shop should not limit itself and do. And I always brought Josh in as early as I could to try and talk to what could be done in that space while we were concepting and designing.
But you're absolutely right, about the limitation of resources. If you're not built for this, it's very difficult. And it would often take down our shop, Lord Danger prior to Modern Logic, to scale up that arm and that facility that we wouldn't have operational on the everyday, which is why we're very much focused on more of a staff model. And of course that changes, and you have tons of freelancers still, but you want your core team, your execution, the people you need on the everyday across all the categories to be people who know each other, that work together, that are at least virtually sitting next to each other with a shorthand, right? So that you can scale up and spool up activity the first sign of that board or that job or that creative comes in.
Can I ask? I want to ask more about that. So a lot of our listeners are up and comers. It's a lot of people learning. You're basically talking about who you have in house and making it easier. Can you elaborate a little more on that? Like, who do you mean having in house? Like, do you feel like it gives you an edge?
I think that it's such an interesting question because it's kind of a bunch of layers there. And one of my sort of, I don't know, I don't want to say strengths, but it is a strength is scaling. I've always been a part of studios that have their core teams and then have brought in, support through freelancers or through a number of different types of executions and whatever software we were trying to use. But the idea is to really, to me, have those strong unicorns at the sort of top of each of the food chains, if you will, as part of the core team. And ideally some really happy, healthy, sort of really multi-dimensional artists and people who can be the talent, and that can do a little bit of design, do a little bit of 3D, do a little bit of 2D, composite really well. Because it's really good to have at least a voice and a style vision for what the studio can be really good at. I think having sort of really amazing unicorns at the top of design and animation that can sort of have that really versatile knowledge base to lead us through like what the pipeline and workflows would be inside of those designs is awesome. And getting support from the types of artists that we want that we might have to reach out for freelance. I think all studios operate this way. I think it's a real common occurrence to have this scalable support team, and everybody likes to hold on to those other support freelance artists as tight as they can in some ways, which you can't. We have some advantages based on, I think, the artistic vision and talent of our core team. I think that is truly a big part of it.
And to add to that, like, it's difficult to move at the speed you need to move at if you're trying to just grab a bunch of people to fill in. You may have a few of them at hand, but if you're like, you get the phone call, you usually have a couple days to turn something around, to speak to what you want to do, to have an approach, to have a direction. And then when it does go, the calendar starts and you need to be up and running. And so honestly, I'll say the unpopular opinion, if we're talking to the kids now a little bit, especially as artists, I really do think it is a difficult place to grow in freelance right now. And there's a lot of opportunity and everybody loves being able to take 3 or 4 jobs, but without being able to train and study underneath, those unicorns that Michael was talking about, the like masters of the industry, it's going to take a lot longer to get from dot A to dot B to dot C to dot D, because you're basically watching tutorials and trying to learn from home. And while there's exceptions to that, it's a lot easier if you can be next to someone and learn. There's something important about having mentorships that you can glean that from and learn how the industry works, because you're not going to learn it anywhere other than doing it. There's not enough books in the world to teach you that. And like, just the skill sets that you can develop and the pencils you can sharpen from being like near people who are great at it. And that's really something I think we believe in, is like, we believe in hybrid work. We believe in like work-life balance and sort of a flexibility in terms of like your life needs being important, along with your work needs, which is like insane that it took a pandemic for us to get there. I love not having to like get out of my pajamas in the morning also, but sometimes you need the change of scenery. And so that's what we want to create. We want to create a change of scenery that gives people a place to work together. There's something about that community problem solving that was really invigorating. And I think is also where you cut your teeth a little bit. You learn what it takes to fight and win.
Well, I saw you guys were on Ad Age's A-list.
Companies to watch, we were, yeah.
Yeah, companies to watch, right? Had you guys already started working together when that came in?
We hadn't launched the formal companies. That was, again, the beginning of 2020. Michael and I came together and said, let's merge this into something that we can build bigger, where we can scale Lord Danger, but we can also create the design and animation studio and create the brand studio infrastructure that we've been talking about for years. It was active recruitment and seeking of friends and people I could learn from. Literally plugging into the companies Michael was at was like crash course on how to run a commercial company with like the people actually doing it. I had to find another way to create the mentorship and the training that could come much easier with getting paid to do it. I wasn't getting paid to do it. I was busting my ass for years. It's pulling yourself up with your bootstraps. It's like, sure, it's a badge of honor, but like, it's not always the most effective way to get to where you're going.
Seeing Josh like continually also push Lord Danger to keep the creative like integrity intact, that was true to what I think humans were really responding to, and keeping that integrity and the type of artists around him, I will say is also what I think is a very interesting thing. No matter, he didn't give up and try to, jump right into doing things the way everybody else did, which brings conformity, a lot to the types of work you're doing. And I think Josh really stuck to the integrity of the types of artists and supporting the directors that he knew were contemporary and that were, presenting themselves so authentically to what was happening in the world around us, that that integrity kept, I think, Lord Danger also going.
While we're talking about creative integrity and Lord Danger, I saw on your sites that you guys build your teams around the agency's specific needs. Do you guys bring in outside directors, or are your directors in-house? And when you do bring in outside directors, how do you go about that process? Because I know that's a big one. A lot of up-and-comers love to hear, how do I get an agency or a company like Lord Danger to notice me?
Yes, we have a roster of directors that are, signed to us. They're exclusive to us. It's often something these days you hear a lot of directors say they don't want to do because they're going to miss out on the opportunities that they could get on their own. I'm like, well, if there were opportunities that you were getting on your own, then you wouldn't mind sitting somewhere to help you do those, because you would know those were coming to you. So they're not coming to you, they're coming to everyone else, and you need to go look. You're hoping everyone else is going to bring them to you without promising anything back to them. And so it's kind of a catch-22. We run a director roster that is an exclusive roster. So the people on our roster shoot everything, at least domestically, commercially, with us. We, of course, also have, what we call hip pocket directors and creative talent, where there's people we're watching and people we're building relationships with. There are people at other studios that, have shown interest in working with us. So we're constantly looking, evolving, trying to update relevancy and make sure we're thinking about the future and looking for new, young, fresh talent that hasn't quite had the chance, maybe has a couple pieces, but hasn't made the jump yet.
And it's not just TikTok videos. We just want to make sure it's not just.
Yeah. And, it has to be, well, these days, maybe it's just TikTok videos, but, but then to the next part of that question is about building teams around the project's creative. And I can get back to the directors, the young directors who want to be noticed, but yes, we do build teams around the needs of the brand or the agency, but oftentimes that's built around the core creatives that we have in the studio. So while that might be a creative director on the design team, or a director on the roster, or potentially, a creative director on, more of a brand direction level, we're going to look around the studio and then also around beyond, the freelance market to say, what's the combination of people that this project needs to get the best version of it out? And that sometimes, like I said, it's a director and a creative director, or maybe it's, one of our brandy CDs, or then from there, they're going to say, okay, I need a designer and an art director, and I need this, or I need a writer and a copywriter. And that team gets crafted based on the project. And there is no one size fits all to everything. And I think, if you have a one size fits all to creative, you end up with the same answer to a lot of different questions, right? You want to have a different answer for different questions. You want to make sure you're thinking about the needs of this project. And I think that in itself is an art of, producing and creative directing in itself, of how do you package this thing with the right pieces to give the best results? What's the best engine to make this car run the fastest?
And with the way that it sounds like you put your teams together, do you find yourself pitching potential clients before you have that team put together? Is it kind of all happening in tandem because you're about to pitch to a certain company, so you kind of get a rough...
All the time.
Can you just tell me about your process a little bit? I'd love to know how you guys go about choosing your clients.
Yes to everything.
Yeah, it's
yes to everything. We come across somebody at a restaurant and dinner time, and you have a conversation and you realize you're talking to a potential client. You haven't thought about who they want to be, but you know what you have and you know what your skill sets are. And really you talk about what your process is for discovering what they need. Your process to find a solution or to find a presentation of solution is part of the pitch in itself.
So it sounds like, this is cool. I want to keep leaning into that for a second. It sounds like someone might come to you because they say, I like how these guys solve our problems.
Except for I would remove problems and put challenges, because
challenges.
There are no problems. There are no problems. There are only challenges, opportunities. No, I'm being serious. Like that word, I'm like, there's not problems as much as there's just challenges that they're facing, with the audiences they're trying to reach. But
I still find myself surprised when I ask people this. How do you go about selecting the projects that you want to focus on? I know sometimes the money's just, you can't say no to it because it's like, well, we need this job this month, so we're making this one work. But I guess in a season of being selective, if possible, or not at all.
I think we're very lucky as a studio in general that the doors or the people that show up at our door, the phones that ring, are often pretty cool projects. Like, not always, not everyone, but in some way. And Michael, you make a point of this all the time of like, every project is an opportunity for something. It's like to build a relationship, to create amazing piece of art, to try out a new skill set that you haven't like done commercially, like whatever it is. You can find a reason to love anything, simultaneously you can find a reason to hate everything. It really depends on your mindset. The reason they're at our door calling on us a bit too is because of the type of creative they've seen us output. So I think immediately the tonality is set up in the right way with the style and comfort they have with maybe stepping out of the conformity of a lot of content. They know that there's an edginess or a unique approach to making it, again, like I think sticking to a type of genre, or how to sort of like describe our work is like that authentic, contemporary, piece of content as a gift to the audience. Like it stays authentic, it's edgy, it's cool, it's keeping up with like the trends of styles that are out there with digital technology or the way that a director is going to approach something. But that's already opened up for them immediately, like to sit down and talk. And I think it's expected, it seems like, Josh, now, I don't know if you agree, but that we have the runway to build a team around the challenge, because we're kind of presented this opportunity really each time. It's like not so much it's like, hey, here, take this and just give us back something that looks kind of like this, but we copied that guy. Like that's not really what's presented to us so much. Is like, hey, and this kind of drives me crazy, all of us crazy in some sense of the word, but it's why we love this, is that we're all running around thinking of new ways of inventing, sort of whatever we're doing each time. And it's like starting over when we're building a team, or at least piecing from and I use unicorns, but a lot of people use that now, is like every multifaceted team members that can sort of creatively like solve something and aren't stuck in sort of one box, literally digital box. So it's like that kind of is opened up a bit early on.
I think that's really encouraging. As you were mentioning that earlier, I was just talking to a friend, and she was a producer at our company, and she left to start her own thing in Atlanta. And we were having a conversation earlier this week, and she was saying, I know myself and several other people, she was like, I feel like we have no place because everyone says, oh, you're a Swiss Army knife, you're a unicorn, you can do all this stuff. And she's like, there is a pull to either be hyper specific, niche down, so that you can be, I guess, more employable. But it's been cool to hear you guys say several times that you not only have a place for the unicorns, as you say, but you actually get a lot of value out of them as well. One of my questions I wanted to ask early on was, because Michael, you had said you're good at scaling teams, what's one of those first roles you look to hire? I don't know if you guys are so far along now that's not even a relevant question, but it sounds like you have an appreciation for multi-talented people.
Well, yeah, but and so specific, like you said, like, talent specific. I don't know. I mean, it really depends. Like, we're constantly looking for so many different things. First thing, what's the question really? Like, what do we look for in someone? Like when?
Yeah, I was curious to know, because you said you're good at scaling teams.
Right.
I guess every team's going to need something different every time. So I was trying to formulate a question. What's one of the first types of roles you're looking to fill when you're scaling? But that might be too broad. So.
Yeah, that's way too broad, or
too
even
broad,
too quick. Because it really just depends on I think
what's breaking.
What's breaking or what's not working. I mean, honestly,
if you need a plumber, you need a plumber.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends. Everything is changing so fast these days. I mean, right now, Josh and I hope I always ask him, like, are you sick of me yet? Because I swear to God, we talk so much. Like, and we started off, I mean, we're really good friends too. So it's at the same time, I'm like, hey, can we still be friends too? Because I'm like, I'm calling you.
Let's put the work hat down. Can I talk about a friend thing?
25 times a day, like trying to keep up with what the new ideas that are rolling in off of the content we're being asked to make, or even think through in certain ways, like a creative think tank. And it's sort of the challenge is, you know, being able to keep up with and understand maybe how to grow maybe someone's current skill set a little bit further in some areas, like especially if it's digital, and if it's a director, then, you know, I'm sure it's with our team too, there's something somebody wants to experiment with and do. So I think we start at home first and try to see where we can grow those skills if necessary. And then outside of that, I think we just look for people with core competencies, and honestly, they have to be good communicators. I mean, that's the biggest thing, and positive.
Especially today.
Yeah. Good communication is like everything these days, and being able to emote, but not over emote. I mean, all these things like
control the information.
And I have 11 or 12 golden rules that I like make everybody live by inside the company. Yeah. No, you're not going to see them. And
you're not going to relieve your Netflix
I
company
won't let up
for
those
us?
golden rules yet. Yeah. I'm still working for the tome. I'm working towards that book at the end of my career. And I'm joking. I just kind of ask everybody to control the information, know when to say something, know when not to. And I just think communication is really one of the key things, especially being a hybrid studio, and then talking about creative and problem solving, where I think knowing when to, contribute and when not to around, you know, and being solution driven is probably the biggest thing we look for in people. I come to the table with solutions and think through things in, you know, I think new ways, but knowing when to sort of present and how to present and talk to the team is super important. But it's always changing.
That's a big one. That's a big one too, to come to the table with solutions thing. Yeah. And that's something I think, you know, Michael pointed out to me, but now I see everywhere, where, you know, if you surround yourself with people who every time they run into a wall, they come to you with, how do I get over the wall? Then you're really just surrounding yourself with people that make your life harder. And what you need is people who say, hey, I've run into a wall and I think you could go over the wall, you could go under the wall, or we could go through the wall. And here's the ways. And you're like, which one should we do? I'm not sure. You know, like, then you're like, okay, great. There's options, there's solutions. Like, you're out there thinking for yourself, not just acting on the task and then reaching the, you know, the dead end and going, oh, I'm stuck in the maze. And you're like, get out of the fucking maze, you know?
Yeah. I see.
And I think that's an evolution of like us as independent thinkers while being hybrid. I think you're expected, and we expect, I think, people to think a little bit more independently about how to solve problems and how to, you know, think through design challenges. And that helps with us scaling too, that we know that they can fit into the matrix of humans that is all spread throughout the country now, and communicating to each other about like, how do we solve something and not set off a set of worries around the challenge. And that to me helps with scaling. But
that's a really good answer.
And then
thank you.
Another thing you mentioned the conversation about unicorns, and that we like kind of the multi-talented people. We do, especially when it comes to creatives, but I think it's really important to kind of box that off, because having the skill sets does not mean using the skill sets in your day-to-day. It's really important to kind of wear the hat of the job you're assigned. It's really important to keep the production and the creative separate, separate but equal, running together. And so that people aren't trying to do too many things because they can, I think one of the lessons I've really learned in the last couple of years is like, if someone else can do something that I'm doing, then someone else should be doing that something. Like literally there's things that only I should be doing, or only I'm the best at in the group. And if and that's what everyone should be focusing on. And if ultimately you can you build yourself a team where everybody is focused on that, single set of tasks that they're best suited to serve. Wow, that was fun. Alliteration.
Best suited to serve.
You'll ultimately have a very well-oiled machine.
Yeah. Nice. Well, if I could swing it back over to you, Josh, because I don't know if we totally got to do it. It was one of the questions. I put out a thing about what questions people would like to ask you, and it is often, you guys are a cool looking company, specifically in the sense Lord Danger, because I was sharing Lord Danger stuff. And people are like, well, what do they look for in
Modern Logic's pretty cool too.
Yeah,
it is cool. But
don't forget about
when I was
Josh,
sharing,
get plugs in. Make sure we're plugged in.
Yeah, Modern Logic is pretty cool too.
It is. I apologize for just focusing.
No, it's all right.
Lord Danger there. I was saying that to say that when I had shared some stuff to the Filmmakers and Advertising Instagram, I shared Lord Danger specific stuff, and I was like, hey, what questions would you ask? And it was a few people going, hey, what do they look for in directors? Did you feel like you fully got to say that, Josh? Because I feel like
I don't think we actually answered that question. It is not a direct answer, unfortunately.
I know it's not a fun question.
I wish I could say
either,
wear a red tie and show up in a blue suit, but it's like, it is not that. Honestly, it's a combination of things. Like, we're looking for something special. You know what I mean? And I know that is not helpful at all, but it's the combination of what is their story? How did they get here? What brings to the table? What is the work that they've done up until this point? What is the work they're working on? What's the attitude? What's the mentality? Like, and you start to see people with something to say. And I think that's kind of what it boils down to in terms of directing. It's like, that's something to say it's something to say with an audience that wants to hear it, right? Like the two pieces. And it doesn't have to be my taste. It doesn't have to be my audience or my style, but it has to be something special that somebody wants to see. And if those things line up, then you have, somebody that's going to be able to go out and tell a story that people want to listen to. And that's really all it is. None of that's helpful. But
no, actually, I was going to say, I don't know if because you think this or because you live in your own head, you realize that's a good answer or not. But it is a very good answer. Actually,
I don't think it tells what to do next.
I think it's just the reality of it.
It is.
It's just the truth. Because you also, could you say that two-parter for me again? It's they have something to say and an audience who actually wants to hear it.
Well, they don't have to have the audience, but they have to have a voice that somebody wants to listen to, and that that somebody has to be a collective somebody, of course, but essentially that's it. Like, you got to tell a story that somebody else wants to watch in whatever medium you're going to do it. And so being obscure and abstract can be fun. It can create a weirdness that draws an audience, but if you're too obscure and abstract and nobody cares, then you're doing it for yourself, and that's okay if you want to make art. But if you want to make money from art, then you have to play to somebody who wants to listen and watch. And so I think it still needs to be organic, and it needs to be true to yourself, and you can't force it. But those things need to align.
Hey, thank you. I think it's a great answer. Thank you for that. I mean that. I really do. That you guys did a Cyberpunk Job, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was that like working with like a video? Because it was for the video game.
It was for the video game. It was with Run the Jewels. It was a song Run the Jewels wrote for the video game.
Okay.
And we had actually done the Lil Nas X Panini video, which was like a cyberpunk thing. And as that came out, actually my lawyer was like, yo, you should call the he's a good friend of mine, but he was my lawyer. And he was like, you should call Cyberpunk. This is like right up their alley. And I was like, you're exactly right. So we did, and it turned out to be a job. I think we bought his baby a nice stroller or something, Michael, after that. But
Jordan, oh, can I say?
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it was a couple years ago. So
yeah. See, there was still gifting.
Yeah, there is still gifting, but it was a very interesting project that was led by Mike Diva. It was one of the last projects we did before we brought the teams together here, and it was a mountain to move. It was very aggressively optimistic in terms of everything that we did and what we wanted to do. Ultimately, we got it done, but we were essentially working with kind of two brands, right? You've got you've got the game and all of its folklore and all of its art and all of its story. And then you've got the artist and all of their opinions and needs. They were fortunately very easy in that regard compared to some artists can be. But, we essentially had to get the entire book from Cyberpunk and learn everything about all the different factions and cities and art and like styles. And then we had to make things that would fit into the world, but couldn't be confused with being the world, because otherwise we would be leading people to think that this stuff may be happening in the game. So we had to create a video that looked like it could have lived inside the video game without being anything from the video game while being assets from the video game. Which was an incredible challenge. It's like, okay, cool. We can use these like art and these bots and these backgrounds, but we can't use environments. So we have to take these things and then put them in a more abstract space and tell stories that have nothing to do with any of the 150 storylines going on in the game. So it was wild. And it was honestly a big accomplishment when we finished it. We were all really proud of it.
Okay. See, now that I've talked to you guys more, I know that the factions, I guess, weren't working together as much back when you guys did the Cyberpunk Job. What about
it was a crossover. I mean, I think we were just starting to put all of this together, but we didn't have the infrastructure built to just like, I had already won the job and had been planning it and had been pitching it. And then Michael and I started working together, and then we were developing it, and then we started putting a team in, and it was just not quite fast enough to catch that one. But it also had to be done in kind of a very like scrappy way to achieve everything we achieved with the money that we had. It was the last hurrah of punching well above our weight class.
Yeah, it looked really cool. I guess I was trying to think from your work that I saw. I was just trying to guess. I could have just asked. You're right here. Which of your jobs required you guys to pool the most of all of your in-house resources together? Because you guys can support one another with all the animation stuff as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're constantly supporting each other in a lot of different ways. And, I'm not sure which, we did both the spots you talked about. We did all together. We did the Doja Cat spot, all Modlo did the VFX.
I was going to guess that one, because that one's so animation heavy.
Doja Cat was done internally. That was a big undertaking with the side, the amount of CG and shots that were being done. But
Old Spice was another one that was a big challenge that we really had to support each other to get done.
Oh, was it really?
So Old Spice was Modern Logic plus Mike's creative team, and so that's sort of a big one. And I think you can start to, there wasn't anything. I think Josh has kept everything very, again, the creative, like sort of the vision intact for Lord Danger. It's more about coming together was really, and it's nice to be asked, but of course that's why I wanted Josh on this too, because I couldn't speak to Lord Danger alone and or represent, because Josh has had this vision for them the entire time. It's about, again, I think creating more support around the team to try to execute things at the level that we want to. And I can't use that boxing reference like you do, but I can say that, are able to just take on more. And again, I think have a wider net and reach in the years that we've now been working together.
Absolutely. Each one of those projects brought us to our knees in terms of, not every single project did, but a project like that, like operating on ourselves with Cyberpunk it was all encompassing. You know what I mean? You couldn't do other things, at least not well. So the growth in the infrastructure, it's like it supports us creatively in terms of there are more awesome people at the table, like throwing ideas into the blender and seeing what kind of smoothie you get. But also like the infrastructure and the team and the processes that are put in place to bring things in, to organize them, to have them all sit in, to not make people crazy, right? Because ultimately, you start seeing, and I remember that moment, Michael, and it's funny because it was actually the first person I think we actually hired, where we were in my office and I had a bunch, it was it was the end of 2020 or something, or the middle of 2020, and we had a bunch of projects coming in at the same time. And I was writing on the whiteboard. I was like, okay, this one I'm gonna put this producer on, this one I'm gonna put this producer on. And I just started spinning, and you're like, time to call our head of production.
That's right. And, you talk about this moment, but I remember I was like, it was very
specific to me because I started to spin because I was like, oh, what am I going to do? I've got all these things and they're all stacking. And you're like, oh, well, those mean we have enough revenue to make the decision to solve this problem, because that'll get us 2 months down the road where we can hire this person and then they'll organize this and then you can focus on something else.
Well, right. And I think, again, it's so funny you look at that moment, but I think it was really coming on to watch, see Josh flourish and thrive inside of that same space. But in my experience, it was just adding a couple of infrastructure elements to get from a production side to get some of this growing and scale it up like that. And I think not interfering with everybody's approach creatively to the project, but that's, it's funny that Josh, he talks about this story once in a while, and I'm like, what?
That means it was a good moment.
Well, because you don't know what you don't know. We
whiteboard. We whiteboard all the time. I want to whiteboard all the time, so I don't know. I wouldn't be so distracted by the frenzy.
It wasn't the whiteboard. It was just 6 different projects that I was lining out with who should produce and who should direct. And you were like, oh, this is, and I was starting to spin. I was like, okay, what am I? And you were like, oh, this is where we hire a person to do this part. Yeah. Which, because again, coming from someone who did a lot of things by himself, his own way, having to learn along the way, it's even understanding the delineation between jobs at a company was something that I didn't instinctively know. You know what I mean? I always make a joke that at the beginning I was the EP and the LP and the PM and the PC and the PA. I was loading checks and I was signing checks and loading boxes. And each step of the way, you start finding out oh, I could hire someone for that. I could hire someone for this. I could hire someone. And that went all the way up to when I'm EPing a team and I know how to do this job, and then you're like, oh shit, now I got to build a company. You know what I mean? It's okay, well, what is my job now? And you have to step back again and look and go, okay, now I'm this and this person, you need to fill in the gaps in front of you. Yeah. And it's a really, to me, that's fun because I think, like I said, I'm built differently. I constantly have to have challenges that I need to know how to solve, that I need to figure out how to solve, or else I will just wander away into the woods and never come back.
Cody, I could second this. He really does something every 5 seconds. I'm like, Jesus, grimy. Yeah, you just sit still. But yeah.
Can I sneak in another question? I don't want to steal you guys' whole workday here, but I do see that we're closing in on our scheduled time. Do you guys have a film in Tribeca?
Yeah, we do.
You do? A feature film?
Yeah.
So you guys are also producing indies, or is this a special occasion? Is this a regular thing?
Josh is trying to drag us into the world of coffees and strange conversations and LA sidewalk.
Yeah, we just don't have enough to do. But yes, one of our directors, Parker Seaman, made a really funny film, an independent comedy over the pandemic, and he got it most of the way there, but he needed a little bit of help in finishing it and bringing it together. So we helped finish that film with him, and then because of which we're EPs on it and helped Lord Danger got attached. But ultimately, it is something it's a back burner goal.
What's it called? Let's plug that thing.
Wes Hogentoffer.
Well, it's like Wes Schlagenhoff is dying, but I can never.
Yeah, Wes.
I can never remember it
Parker
either.
Parker sees this, he's gonna kill me. Or you.
I'm sorry. I call it Wes is dying internally all the time.
Yeah, I call Wes is dying.
It's a really funny film.
It makes fun of advertising.
Oh, great!
It does a fair amount of advertising plug comedy, and it premiered at Tribeca. So go check it out.
That's a good place to premiere.
It's a great, I think Parker is looking at developing more. Josh and I think, want to do that. Plus, we have a couple of other personal projects in the mix that are around sort of, I think, the evolution of what content is and branded content and stuff like that. But I think the film side is now that I've kind of been through it a little closer, I think it's fun. I'm not so mad at Josh for wanting to have long, afternoon coffees about it. So it's.
Yeah, well, I
need to have more long coffees. That's for sure. I'm always tired.
No.
I'm going to ask a couple of questions on the way out, but before I do, I did want to say officially in a podcasty way or whatever, say, thank you for letting me just throw all these random "how do you run your company" questions at you guys, because you look cool. You look really cool. You're a cool looking company and batch of companies.
It's so hard being cool.
Well, you guys,
it's what I'm teaching Michael. He's teaching me how to grow up. I'm trying to teach him how to never grow up.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you guys sharing, kind of lifting the veil on some of this stuff, because when you look at some of the work you guys have done, I know someone like me just assume this must have just been so easy for them. That's just how good these people must be. Yeah, say thank you. Because until hearing, your stories about how much work goes into it, you just think there's these just massive teams, really easy. Doja Cat must have been in and out in a week, and it was all just, just easy peasy, nothing troublesome at all.
Just going through
I remember.
I have wrinkles from Doja Cat. No,
I remember thinking that though. I remember getting, the first time anyone ever gave us money to do anything, right? And it was like, you were so excited to go make something, and everything was a favor and everything was a challenge, and you literally had to just be like, how do we do this? How do we do this? How do we do this? We don't have any money. You know what I mean? You don't have any money. How can we do these things? And then thinking like, oh God, how easy it'll be when one day, like, there's actually enough money to do the things you want to do. And you're like, that literally never happens. It never happens.
Because everybody's
money,
like,
there's
the more money you make,
the
more you spend. The more you spend.
The more money you make, the more you spend, the bigger the ideas are, but also like the harder things get, the more expensive things get, the more you have money you have. And you're like, it literally is, it's always a challenge. So
I appreciate you sharing that too. I appreciate you sharing that too, because even we've learned that. I mean, once we got up into bigger budgets, I was like, okay, this will get easier. And then I started to see the gear and all in the sets and stages and stuff, and I was like, we're just constantly bargaining now. I feel like I'm at the bazaar or something, because I'm always heckling and bargaining now, which somebody had to teach me how to do, by the way, like a good line producer. She was like, no, you don't pay full price. And I was like, what? What do you mean you don't pay full price?
I always love when someone tells me what it says on the the price it says on the website, and you're like, I don't, no, price on the website. That's for somebody
else.
But
I wouldn't have known that unless a good line producer. She was like, no, you never pay full price, and I was like, how would I ever know this?
But I mean, that's there's ultimately one of the things I always found, and I'm sure this podcast is hopefully helpful to some people, and not ours, but I mean yours. But there's not really a book for this, you can take classes, you can like go to film school, and then you get out of all that and you realize you don't know shit. And then you got to get your ass kicked and kind of learn the ropes. And that's, again, why I say like the best way to do that, I think, is to go find someone you can work for that'll teach you what they're doing. Because otherwise you're just making it up as you go, and it's going to take you 25 years to get to start.
Let your freak flag fly, Cody. What is it that you're trying to do, in all honesty? What is it that you're getting out of this and trying to move towards?
This, thanks for asking. As uncomfortable and scary as this podcasting, interviewing people with more experience than me thing has been, I I get something, I learn something every time. It is scary. I'm not trying to be corny. I mean, it's scary to talk to guys like you who have a lot more experience than me. But it's just making me better every time. Even if it's not much, I'm still learning something valuable.
I love that you say that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
That is kind of the spirit in all of this, really, is like,
Yeah.
we're closer to knowing nothing than we ever will be to knowing everything. So like strap in, because if you think you know what's going on, you're going to get like usurped at some point by someone else who's willing to learn another lesson, right? Like you always have to know that you don't know.
Yeah. And if you ever think you're going to get to a place that you can sit back and feel like you're going to be able to.
I've learned it all.
It's never going to happen. Every day is going to be the same set of challenges that keep up with where everybody wants to go or be different creatively. So I feel like that never ends. And if you accept the fact that it's always going to be a learning challenge, and that's part of the excitement of doing and making things, then that's where I think the positive energy and like sort of emotions you get from people is that they've accepted that what we're doing every day. And it's not like any bit of jadedness or frustration with that challenge always being at hand. And that's, I think, where everybody gets the good, positive, creative juices. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the lessons that I like often give to like young assistants, right? That want to be on the producer track is like, I learned how to produce by waiting tables. You know what I mean? I was walking up to strangers. I was figuring out what they needed before they could tell me. I was figuring out who they wanted me to be before they made it known, and then talking them into giving me as much money as I possibly could. It's like, that's literally producing, right? And so
I might be able to keep
the same thing. The same thing applies, if you're an assistant on someone's desk, or you're, interning somewhere. It's like, walk into the room and look for the problems that someone else is going to run into before they even notice them, and then fix them before they notice they're broken. It's like, so when the person that you're helping walks into the room, you've gone, hey, this was here, I did this was here, I've done this, here you go, here's what you need for your next call. And it like seems reductive in a lot of ways, but it's that problem solving skill set that constantly means you have to be learning. You've got to be looking around, you've got to be absorbing information, you've got to be looking at everything in the room. And if you have that problem solve with the willingness to constantly learn, like that's kind of 2 of the 3 steps. The other one's just like not being an idiot.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. You also made me feel a lot better. My first bartending job was at Shutters on the Beach Hotel, where I had to wear these really high pleated shorts and a pink belt. And now I feel good about it. I'm just going to call that producing now.
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
No.
Go, Michael, go.
That's weird. So that was my first job in LA.
Wait a second. When were you there?
I was there. Please don't make me say this.
When were you there?
Earlier.
I was.
Are you sure?
Oh yeah. I was concierge at Shutters on the Beach. Was my first job.
When did you leave?
And I was only there for 2.5 years, almost 3. And I was 19 till 22. No, I was 22, I think, when I left. And it was the best job. I always talk about it all the time. Josh, I mean, I have so many stories. I feel like I killed James Gandolfini.
Dude, you do. I stopped telling people stories because I was like, nobody's going to believe me with all these celebrity stories. Like, they're not going to believe that I had to go undim the light slowly for Robert De Niro as we snuck his breakfast in. Like, just Shutters, you get weird stories at Shutters.
You get weird. And I have the same ones. And I was like, I don't want to tell people. I really feel like I killed
This
James.
is a podcast.
Yeah, I know. I'm so sorry.
Again, for producing, it taught me as a concierge how to problem solve every 5 seconds. It taught me how to be like, I'll get that for you. I'll get that for you. I'll be right back. And where's my tip?
I thought
yes.
Josh is right. This is blowing my dumb podcast out of the water. No, I remember there were a couple times where I remember one time, I wish I knew the film that was in development, but some people, I don't even know who, they had left paperwork there. And I was seeing the final casting, and it was down to Ryan Gosling and a few other people. And I was just like, oh man, I'm so in. It didn't mean anything. I was just like, but I mean, I'd moved to LA. I was like, this is it.
Yeah. And John Travolta used to stay there a lot all the time too, and I have plenty of stories for that.
Okay.
One. There should be a whole podcast dedicated to
a whole
Shudder.
podcast, yeah. If I could give you one more funny one. I remember when I saw one time paparazzi was showing up, I was like, who is here? I was talking to Jocelyn, was my manager at the time, and I was like, who is here right now? And she was like, oh, it's like the Kardashians. I was like, oh, they're here? She was like, no, not yet. And I was like, how does the paparazzi know that she's not here yet? And she was like, don't you know how this works?
Yeah.
No. And she was like, her PR person calls ahead of time and tells the paparazzi where they're going to be. And I was like, it's all fake? And she was like, yeah, it's all fake. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So,
that's great.
But no, my career, just, to finish answering, and I don't want to keep you guys to, you might crack up at this. I ignorantly thought years ago I was working production and film, and I was like, I'm not directing films as fast as I want to. I'll just produce commercials. That'll be easy. I'll just do that for a few weeks a year, make a lot of money, and then I'll just direct films in between. One of the most ignorant things I've ever thought in my life. I had no idea. Like, you just don't know. Like, commercial production might be, 7 to 10 days, but client courting to final delivery, 6, 12, 18 months. I had no idea. So, guys, I know I've held you hostage. I genuinely mean it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. I know I had a lot of questions for you guys just about how you run your business, because like I said, you guys looked really cool. I wanted to know how the sausage was made a little bit. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
It was fun. I really appreciated your questions too. They were thoughtful.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, thanks, Cody.
We hope you enjoyed this episode with Michael Ryan Bennett and Josh Shadid of Lord Danger, Modern Logic, under the holding company Monstera Group. You can find links to their websites and social media profiles, as well as some short bios on them in the show notes. If you have any guest recommendations, please let us know on Instagram or Facebook or via a review on Apple Podcasts. From Cry, a creative production and post house based in New York City, I'm Cody, and this is Filmmakers and Advertising.